Okay, so this is Karen and Lizzie again, and we're doing our shared broadcast number 2 for this week. And so because it's early in the week, I'm still processing the information and the implications and all the readings. So my thoughts are a little bit scattered, but so I'm going to go ahead and begin, and we'll start with our quotes, and then move on to why those passages are important or why they're relevant for our discussion. And we'll go where it leads from here. So I had initially one quote, and then I ended up finding a second, third, and fourth, as you keep going. But my initial quote was from the first chapter of the assignment, and it was, given the changing landscape, how do adult and continuing educators and human resource developers provide access, support, and leverage for underrepresented adult groups? And that I thought was both what was puzzling, as in it's a problem that needs to be addressed, and also most relevant to adult education. And so I chose this because it's both personal and professional, relevant to me. I have 2 very close family friends who are people of color. One is Asian, one is African American, who are self-taught, who had self-acquired technical skills, and have been contracted for the past decade by companies, sometimes working with 6-figure incomes and traveling the world. But neither of them are ever offered a full-time job with benefits because they do not have the quote-unquote appropriate degrees. They repeatedly get passed over for promotions by new young people, usually from another country going to college on a visa. And it's incredibly frustrating to see people that have that skill, but it's just based on the degree. They're not able to get a full-time job with benefits. So one person has a bachelor's, already has a master's, but it's not the appropriate one. And she just informed her family that she's going to apply for yet another master's degree just so she can get somebody in Seattle to hire her. Because right now she lives out in San Francisco and she wants to work up here. And my other friend has now been unemployed for going on 6 months. He's broke and he's considering going back to school to get a certificate or something. But he's kind of stuck financially. He doesn't know how he would ever pay to go to school. He does not have a bachelor's degree, and so he'd be starting from scratch. And it's frustrating because you got 10 years worth of skills that are current. They're not outdated skills by any means. But it's just because he doesn't have the degree associated. So
are the skills, can I ask some clarifying questions?
Mm-hmm.
Are the jobs that they want, are those a little more specialized? Is that why this is such a like a paper or a certificate focused problem?
So the first girl, she got into web design, coding. She taught herself coding, like advanced coding. That's a foreign language to me. I can't do that. So she taught herself web design and coding. And like I said, huge conglomerates, big companies have been hiring her to design their web pages and to consult for them around the globe. But they won't hire her here in Seattle because she doesn't have an actual degree in web design or a certificate in coding. And then my other friend, he designed apps for cell phones, like designed them from scratch, and big companies downtown sold them, used them. And he's also a web designer, and he also knows coding. But again, he doesn't even have a bachelor's degree. He just taught himself this stuff. And so they look at that and they're like, oh, he's got a high school diploma. They just toss his resume. They toss his application. And it doesn't matter that he's got 10 years worth of experience and awesome references. But what they get are young people who are fresh out of college, who have a degree. And I don't know if they think that, oh, well, these people could work maybe for less money because they're new and you're young. but they have that degree. And so my friends are getting passed over and then being told to please teach these younger people how to do the job, you know, and it's heartbreaking and it's incredibly frustrating.
Were you done? I don't want to cut you off.
No, go ahead.
Okay. Well, what my last semester I took this, adult learning. It's one of the other prerequisites for our program. And one of the modules was about the ability to use your own experience as a way to test out of a degree or to even obtain a degree. And I think that what you're saying is quite relevant. I mean, it's just like striking a chord with me. Those connections right there, it makes a lot of sense. I remember at the time I was very skeptical about it because, you know, how can you measure someone's knowledge without being in a program? But at the same time, at the same time, what's the point of your friends sitting in a web design course if they already know
how to do it?
It's a waste of time and it's a waste of money. So, I don't know. I'm going to go backwards, but for my second quote, that was explain what I want to know more or next steps. What is going along with kind of what you're saying is how can we track informal or non-formal learning to help advocate for disadvantaged groups or disadvantaged people who are trying to improve their quality of life. And does this amount to anything? Because I think that's a really big question that I don't know how to answer. So I don't know of other degree, if there are existing programs that grant experience towards.
I haven't heard one of around here. I was in the class with you that examined that, and I think it was one college that was sort of testing the waters on it, but they hadn't figured out how to do that yet. And I was like, oh, I know so many people who would qualify for something like this, you know, especially when it's a hard skill, you know, it's not a matter of life experience. It's a hard skill that they know, you know, they should be able to test out of that.
Yeah. So. That's unfortunate for your friends. I'm sorry.
I know.
Do you know, are they for sure going back or kind of a playing along?
The girl, she's adamant that she's going to get a master's. Her family's trying to talk her out of it, saying just don't come to Seattle, do another city, where, you know, and keep trying. But she has the money and the time and the flexibility, and she's single and she has no kids. And like I said, she's been contracted with 6 figures, so she just kind of hoarded all that money that she made.
She's almost like that.
I'd like to settle down.
Adult learner, I guess. You know, when we were reading about the adult learner, she's kind of has the income, has the support, has the time. Right?
Yes, she's right on it. But the thing is that she wants to settle down and lock it in rather than do contract to contract when your contract expires, you know, and then you're just kind of left hanging until something happens. And she wants to solidify things more and just get a stronger foundation. And I think she's actually wanting to buy a house in Seattle, and so we'll see.
Which if you don't have income that lasts, you know, an income that lasts X amount of months or whatever, they're not going to give you a loan for.
So all of it just kind of trickles all over the place, how it affects people. And my other friend, he's kind of I want to say intimidated a little bit because he hasn't gone to school since high school. So he's intimidated about the idea of going to a college, even if it's a certificate program. But I'm sitting there like, dude, you know this stuff better than the help desk at Seattle University. He applied to the help desk and they turned him down because he didn't have a degree. And I'm like, he could run the place, you know, he's more helpful than anybody at IT. But no.
I wonder too if, you know, like you said, intimidated, and I'm thinking because a big topic about chapter 2 was like who is an adult learner. You
Mm-hmm.
get these people who haven't been in a formal education environment that
Yes.
don't know what it, you know, when you've been a lot away from something for so long, they don't
Yeah.
either know what to expect, or bad memories from high school start seeping through to your brain of
Yes.
sitting in a class and being suppressed.
Yeah.
So I
So
could understand how, and I feel like that really wasn't mentioned in the book. Like people's preconceived notions of what education is might actually deter them from returning.
they mention it like there's one section
There's one
in
small section.
chapter 2 where they talk about constraints.
Yeah.
They break it up into 3. Like there's institutional, which is like policies that block people from being able to do things, or situational, such as families and income. And then there's dispositional, which is your preconceived, what it is about you that is stopping you from moving forward.
That's
And
true.
I know so many people that have the dispositional. And I think in his case, it's a cross between situational and dispositional. So the institutional is what's keeping him from getting the job. But the situational, he's afraid of the income. He doesn't think he has the financial way to go to college. And the disposition is he's afraid of it. I really think he's intimidated by it.
Yeah.
But his wife has a PhD and she's trying to convince him, and
Almost the opposite of the spectrum,
Yes.
He's done quite the school. Oh.
It's really heartbreaking and frustrating, and and so
I mean, it's nice. It's not a good situation, but it's how your experiences and your actual examples really help show me what the vast spectrum of adult educated people who could be in education as an adult or as a learner could be. So thanks for sharing.
Yeah. Yes. So
should I run through my quotes?
You ran through, I thought you only mentioned the one.
Yeah. Wow. So a lot of my, like when I chose the quote, the first, I guess the more political one that kind of goes along with yours, that I found surprising was I don't know why. I mean, it popped off the page at me, and I was like, whoa, like aggressive much. But it was from another vantage point, the lens of critical theory has suggested that adult education offerings represent an apparatus for social control.
Yeah, I read that several times. When I saw that page, I read the same sentence like 6 or 7 times. Like, what?
Like, wait, yeah, like I'd never thought of it like that. But then, kind of going to the next question, like, why did I choose it, and like, what were my thoughts around it? Was like, it's an institution. It was probably made by the white male, and what works for them or what works for that group of people is pushed throughout the institution to maintain power and control. And I do think that that's how, or what ends up relating to the disparities in gender and socioeconomic backgrounds that are found in the makeup of adult education. So, I mean, my spectrum of knowledge and my experience is with high school, so I know it's not quite adult education, but I know that a big initiative for my school district is equity for all students, and it's almost kind of like, it's kind of related to what you're saying, but like what I've noticed is that they know that a problem exists, but they aren't, and they'll say that a problem exists, but they're not sure what to do about it. And they're trying to do things, but there's no like tangible, like, here are the XYZ things that we are doing to promote equity in the classroom, or they're saying that they're doing it, but like on the teacher level, the day in, day out, I still question if it's really making the big impact that they want it to be. I know as a teacher, I try to give every student in my class as equitable of an experience as possible, but I do understand that there are some systemic things that we have to face. And Lizzie, you can correct me if I'm wrong. I know that you did some equity work with corporations or diversity work with corporations. Okay.
I saw your note about that, and I was like, no, I haven't.
No,
but I have. So I know I've had some experience with, basically my children are African American. And so I have one in high school and one in elementary school. And so I've gone through the public school system so far. And last quarter, when we were learning about professional development, I actually did a research thing on critical race theory in higher education and in the education system itself. So I've studied it. I haven't done anything with corporations. I might have.
Maybe that's something you're interested in doing.
Yeah, that's basically what I'm interested in doing, but I haven't gotten there yet. Yes. I'm interested in providing diversity and cultural awareness training in a human resource.
From your research, have you come up with some theories that support that?
So,
it's a big ask. It's a big. I just want to know what you uncovered.
So, basically, when I haven't had enough time in my classes so far to really explore it, but last quarter I managed to study some the critical race theory, and it listed 5 tenets. Sometimes it goes up to 6 tenets of it, but the basic idea of it is that it's entrenched. The systemic racism and the misogynism and all of that is entrenched in the system as it is right now. And so no matter what people do or what people say, it will always kind of spin around, come back, and benefit the majority white male in some way. And so they said, even when people say, oh, we're colorblind. Well, no, you're not. You think you are, but you're still going to benefit the white male, that sort of thing. And it's something that needs to be more readily acknowledged, and a lot of institutions don't even acknowledge it. They say, oh yeah, there's a problem, and then they move on. Like your schools, they say, oh, there's a problem, we want to do this, but we don't know what we're going to do, so we're just going to keep moving on. And
but then they say that they are doing stuff. I don't know. So that's so
it's not tangible. You haven't seen it. When it comes to the schools, I did a little bit of counseling in a couple of schools. And I was studying school counseling, and so I had practicum in different schools, and experiencing that way. And one of the classes that I worked on, I examined homeschool communication, and people thought, oh, homeschooling, and no, it was like the communication between the school and the families. And so it was a matter of representation matters. Do you have teachers who the students can look at and see themselves in? Are you mirroring the children's experience? Cultural relevance matters. Are the materials that you're offering these students relevant to what they know or what is at home for them? And then communication matters. A lot of teachers don't readily communicate with the parents to find out why their child might act differently in the classroom than at home, or if the behavior that you see in your classroom, I mean, in high school it's different, but in elementary school, when those kids act out in the classroom, the teachers, depending on which school you're in, the teachers can turn around really quick and say that child needs to be in an EBD classroom or special needs. Really? And they don't even ask the parents if that behavior is okay at home. They don't check on the culture of the home first. And that's why there's a disproportionate amount of children of color in EBD classes. And it's because you have teachers who don't have any cultural knowledge of the diverse kids in their classrooms.
What irritates me too is then that the ED classes become a dumping ground, and then those teachers become ineffective.
Yes, and my mom is an EBD teacher, and she's the first one who will sit there and say, half the kids in my class don't belong in here. They don't. And it's because a young white male or female didn't know how to communicate with the child and was intimidated to talk to their parents. And so they just put it forward that this child doesn't know how to behave. And the behavior is just different from what they know, what they're familiar with. And it sort of continues to build up on that whole, what is it, the school to prison pipeline thing that people talk about. You're taking the children of color, putting them in an EBD classroom where now they've been labeled, so they don't think that they can communicate with the teachers. These kids feel ostracized from the other students. They eventually end up, worst case scenario, they drop out because they can't relate to anybody in their schools. They end up in prison, then they end up unemployed, and then you get the statistics mentioned in the book about people of color, unemployed, uneducated, and now you have a participant issue who's afraid to go to school. So it's all interwoven and connected. And
this is also too, like the bias or the personal, the weight of a label like that too. How that causes a bias within the teacher and the student, right, of ability level. And I was talking to one of my colleagues about how, I guess there's like a study or some sort of experiment where they didn't tell the teacher, or they had two groups of teachers, and they told the teacher that they were teaching the most AP level student, highest, intelligence of students. So they came in like raring to go, but the students were actually just a normal class, like, a regular normal class. Like it wasn't anything amazing or anything like AP level. And the kids rose to the occasion. And I think that unfortunately, people have biases, and I think that this is just another case of that. Where if you walk into a classroom or walk into and this could go for adult education too. If you walk into your classroom with your expectation predetermined for these students, then that limits the outcomes.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yep. It does.
I haven't been taking time, so.
Oh no, neither have I.
I
know we couldn't start at 8. We had to delay a little bit, so.
Yeah. So I guess since I already said what I wanted to, like, explain what I would like to know possible steps, what was your like final possible step question or something that you would like to expand upon in future weeks?
Well, how did I jumped off. I jumped around so much. I don't know where I left off at. Let me see. So my initial quote about underrepresented had a continuation. What should future institutional structures, policy frameworks, and media discussions focus upon in adult learner participation, particularly for disadvantaged adults? And I think currently my school is trying to address those things, but I don't think they fully consider or give credence to all of the constraints, like we were talking about, dispositional and situational. I think that they consider the situation, but they don't consider the individual disposition that might be stalling people out. Or in our case, we're actually hitting a lot of institutional barriers that are stopping people. So something that I would like to consider for possible next steps is I'm still working with trying to find a structure to get past the barriers. We've created professional development offerings that the university doesn't fully recognize. The university has no system for measuring or recording continuing education or professional development. So while we're trying to work with the community and bring people in and certify them and give them additional skills, if anybody were to call the university for a reference or evidence, there's nothing.
Wow.
You know, we can print out a cute little certificate, but there's no record of what they took. You know, it's not for credit. They didn't pay tuition, so they don't get credit. So it's not transferable. There's no transcript. There's no record.
Are they required to?
No. Well, right now the university doesn't do continuing education.
Okay.
Or professional development. So it's something that my graduate school is really trying to build, and I think there's 2 or 3 other graduate schools on campus that have been trying to do this, and the university just isn't coming on board with us. And it's one of those things where it's an institutional barrier. If these people, like my friend, if he needs a certificate that says that he was trained in this stuff, he needs something official that states it, not just something that was printed a cute little Adobe PDF, you know, or a publisher
sticker on
with a fancy border. You know, there needs to be some official record of it. So that's an institutional barrier that's blocking some people from coming in. So yeah, I'm still wrapping my head around all this stuff. Like, you notice how our conversation just went all over the place.
It did, yeah. And I remember my first quote, which was about certification and forcing education on people who don't want to do it.
Yeah.
Because, you know, institutions require them to get certificates and people don't understand why. But anyway, you know what we could do? We could also I'll attach our Google Notes so that people can read them to the recording, and then people can comment on all of that stuff. And I think we went way over time, so sorry.
No, I don't think we went way over time.
Okay, I hope
not. And then also the instruction, we're supposed to embed the video into the.
Oh.
Yeah.
I will try and do that. But we'll see what happens.
Okay.
All right. Okay. Well, thanks for watching. I will see you next week.
All right.